All right, let's talk about something you probably walk past every single day and never really think about: the residential parking permit sign. It seems so simple, right? But believe me, there is a massive, fascinating story packed into that little piece of metal.
Oh, we've all been there. That feeling, that slow burn desperation as you circle the block for the fifth time. And then you see it, a whole row of empty spots, just taunting you from behind a sign that basically says, nope, not for you. It feels personal, it feels infuriating, and it's just a part of living in a city.
But what if I told you that sign isn't just about parking? What if it's actually the final chapter of a huge legal battle that went all the way to the Supreme Court? Yeah, this is the story of how one simple sign completely redefined the purpose of our streets and changed how our cities work.
Okay, so first things first. To get this story, you have to understand the problem these permits were trying to fix. The absolute nightmare of urban parking and, honestly, the weird psychology it creates in all of us.
I love this term, parking psychosis. It just nails it, doesn't it? It's that bizarre sense of entitlement, this deep-seated belief that the city somehow owes us a free spot to store our private property, our 2-ton car, on incredibly valuable public land. That feeling? That's the emotional engine driving this whole debate. So, where did this all kick off? Well, the story of the modern parking permit doesn't start in some huge, bustling downtown. Nope, it starts in a quiet little suburb that just got fed up.
Okay, picture this. It's 1974. Aurora Highlands is just a sleepy residential neighborhood. But right next door, you've got Crystal City, which is absolutely exploding with new office buildings. So every single morning, thousands of commuters drive in, and instead of paying for a garage, they just flood the quiet, tree-lined streets of Aurora Highlands hunting for free parking. For the people who live there, it was like a daily invasion. So as you can imagine, the county had to step in. In '74, they created one of the very first residential-only permit zones in the whole country. And guess what happened? They were immediately sued. The lawsuit starts as this tiny local dispute, but it just keeps escalating all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And here's the core of the whole argument. The guy leading the lawsuit, Rudolph Richards, he made a really simple, but you gotta admit, powerful point. He lived just one block outside the permit zone, so his neighbors inside the zone could come park on his street, no problem. But he couldn't go park on theirs. He argued that violated his constitutional right to equal protection. And it's a really good question, right? Can a city just decide to give special treatment to one group of residents over another?
Well, in 1977, the Supreme Court came back with a decision. They actually sided with Arlington County. They said that, yes, preserving a neighborhood's quality of life is a legitimate reason for a law, and a permit program was a rational way to do it. And just like that, the floodgates opened. Cities all across America finally had the green light, the legal precedent they needed to start rolling out their own permit programs.
So, problem solved. Hooray! Residents got their streets back. But, like any simple solution to a really complex problem, this one came with some pretty serious and kind of hidden consequences. Which brings us to this idea called asphalt socialism. Now, think about this for a second. Our cities use public money, our tax dollars, to build and maintain streets. Then they turn around and give that space away for super cheap, sometimes even free, so we can store our private cars there. Meanwhile, you want to ride the bus or the train? You're paying full price. It's basically a massive hidden subsidy that just benefits car owners. And when you look at the numbers, it's just wild. A study of the 30 biggest cities in the U.S. found the median price for a monthly parking permit was just $2.25. The median for a monthly transit pass, $77. The system is just overwhelmingly tilted in favor of people who own cars.
So we end up with this really strange paradox. The whole promise was to make city life better, reduce traffic, give residents fair access. But the reality is, by making parking so artificially cheap, these permits actually encourage more people to own cars, they can drive up housing costs, and they tend to benefit wealthier households, the ones who are more likely to own a car in the first place.
And all of this brings us right up to today's dilemma. We've got this policy that's almost 50 years old, and it's starting to clash really hard with the realities of our modern cities. It's forcing a lot of people to rethink the whole thing. Just look at a city like San Francisco. Their permit program started way back in 1976, but the San Francisco of today is a totally different world, and those old rules are just buckling under all the new pressure.
I mean, just look at the changes. The population has absolutely exploded. You've got 500,000 cars on the street every day, plus now you have Uber, Lyft, delivery services, car sharing. They're all fighting for the exact same tiny sliver of curb space. The old system just was not built for this kind of competition.
And this is where the story gets way, way bigger. This isn't just about finding a parking spot anymore. The fight for the curb is now directly tied to one of the biggest crises we face as a country: housing. Right now, America is short an estimated 4 million homes. And our parking policies, they're actually making that problem worse.
So here's the link. When cities force developers to build a certain number of parking spots for every new apartment, it massively inflates the cost of construction. And where does that cost go? It gets passed straight on to renters and buyers. So our obsession with car storage is making it a lot harder and more expensive to provide people storage.
So all of this forces us to ask a much, much bigger question. That fight that started in a little suburb back in 1974 ended up defining how we use our streets for decades. Now we have to decide what we want our streets to be for the next 50 years.
You know, this quote from author Henry Grabar just says it all. For an entire century, the default setting for one of our most valuable public assets, the curb, has been nothing more than free storage for cars. It's so ingrained in our thinking, we don't even realize it's a choice. But it is. It's absolutely a choice. And we can choose to do something different.
What if that space was a bike lane or a wider sidewalk with benches and trees? What if it was outdoor seating for a local restaurant or even a tiny little park? That simple parking permit sign isn't just a rule. It's a declaration of our priorities as a city. So the next time you see one, ask yourself, is this really the best we can do with all this shared public space? What else could this be?